Hi everyone, and welcome to English for You. I'm Pat.
I'm Mike.
And today's article is all about writing and something you can do to make your writing just that little bit more interesting.
Oh, this is great because this is what you love to do.
Indeed.
Not just in your work, but in your free time, too.
That's right.
Absolutely. So how much writing do you do in your free time?
I write when I can.
Okay.
Before I became a parent and I had all this free time, I had a different kind of system.
Yeah.
Now it's just kind of, okay, I write at lunchtime because that's my free time.
Okay.
And maybe if I'm getting close to a story publication date, then I can say to the family, like, I need a bit of time here. You've got to give me some time.
Okay.
Otherwise, if it was completely up to me, I'd probably shoot for an hour to 2 hours a day if that was possible.
Okay. And do you always want to do it, or are there days when you get up? We've all heard about writer's block, when you don't have any ideas and you're staring at an empty page or an empty computer screen. Do you ever have times when you're like,
what next?
I have no idea what to do right now. No idea what to write.
Then I'll probably go, well, what's the reason for that? What's stopping me? And I'll do some kind of note-taking, brainstorming, and figure out the answers to what's stopping me from pushing the story forward.
Interesting.
Because it wouldn't just be tiredness or something on my part. It would be, I have no idea where this story's going. I can't jump over this kind of plot problem. And you can always go back and edit some stuff and look at what you've already written and go, okay, the answers are in there somewhere.
Okay.
And that'll help me, looking back, will help me to move forward.
Interesting. All right.
Maybe looking back at the original idea for the story.
Yeah.
And where have I gone wrong with it?
I see. Okay. So there's a whole bunch of different things you can do, different processes you can use. And we're looking at an article for today and tomorrow called Similes Spice Up Your Writing. So this will be useful for people who, like Pat, write for their job. Maybe you write as a hobby. You have a great idea for a story. Or maybe you just like to keep a blog or, write little reviews on the internet. Any kind of writing, really, can be spiced up by using similes.
But what are similes? Let's read through our article and find out.
Reading.
Similes spice up your writing. Do you know anyone who's as wise as an owl? Have you ever seen someone run like the wind? If you've described a person in this way, you've used a simile. A simile is a technique that makes your writing more creative. To use one, you compare two similar things. Imagine you've just had a really busy day. You could post on Facebook and say, I've had a really busy day. That's a little boring, though. To spice things up, use a common simile and say, Today I've been as busy as a bee. To make a simile, use as or like in the comparison. When you try to come up with one, make sure the two things really are similar. Tommy is as quiet as a dog in class doesn't really work. However, Tommy is as quiet as a mouse in class makes sense. Similes have many uses, but writers have to be careful how they use them too.
So the article begins with a question asking, do you know anyone who's as wise as an owl? Now this is in fact a simile, as we'll explain in a few moments. And a simile will use this kind of structure, as followed by an adjective or adverb, as something else, a noun, another noun. And this is a way to compare two things, saying they have the same amount of each quality or an equal ability or way of doing something. If you say you look at a tree and go, that's as big as a house, then you're saying they're the same size. This tree and a house are, you can compare them. They are the same size. You could also say, this lake is as big as the sea. It's huge. Think of a really big lake. Or if you want to use an adverb, I can run as quickly as my brother. Or I can run as quickly as my brother can. You don't need the can at the end. It does help with kind of learning how to use this kind of structure, but this is just one of several ways you can make a comparison. And here the comparison is to an owl.
Yeah, comparing a person to an owl and the wisdom of an owl. Let's talk about what an owl is. This is basically a hunting bird. Owls are related in some ways to hawks or eagles, but of course owls have those very unique feathers. They kind of have a big round head, large eyes, and we often think of owls as being birds that hunt at night, which they do. They have excellent eyes and even better ears. They actually use their ears to hunt at night more than they use their eyes, but owls are hunting birds that we often see flying at night, and of course they make that very unusual hoo-hoo kind of sound that is also something owls are famous for, as well as being wise. I don't know why, but even going back to the ancient Greeks, right? Athena, the goddess of wisdom, is often represented with an owl. So for some reason, people have always thought of owls as being wise, intelligent. If you're wise, you have wisdom. This is sort of like intelligence or knowledge, maybe kind of gained through a very long life. Old people we often look at as being very wise. Ask them difficult questions and they'll give you a good answer. Maybe an owl can give you a good answer too. Our example sentence for this word owl: an owl made its home in the roof of my uncle's barn. We don't know if the owl was wise, but he ate a lot of mice.
That's a pretty wise thing to do if you're an owl.
Yeah,
the farmer probably thanked him and left him some food. So another question follows in the article in a similar kind of way. Have you ever seen someone run like the wind?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I guess it's a strong wind.
Yes.
Not a gentle wind.
Not a nice breeze, but a full-on typhoon-style wind.
Exactly, and that's what it means when Pat says that. I think of Usain Bolt or someone running really fast. If you're running like the wind, I would think you're running really fast. And it says, if you've described a person in this way, wise as an owl, running like the wind, in either of those ways, if you've described a person in this way, you've used a simile. And when we describe, this verb means basically you're drawing a picture, but not with a pen or pencil or with paint, not using a photograph. You're making a picture with words. If I talk about how tall someone is, the color of their hair, the shape of their eyes, if I tell you about a beautiful mountain with green trees and a blue lake and, a little village down in the bottom, you can kind of picture this, but I'm not showing you a picture. I'm not drawing anything. I'm using words to create a picture in your mind, in your imagination. When you read a book and they tell you what one of the people, the characters in the book looks like, they are describing that person. For example, I can't describe the man's face, but I know he was very tall. So I can kind of describe his body, but I didn't see his face, so I can't describe that.
Okay, well, when you're describing a person with running like the wind or as wise as an owl, this is a simile. And we're basically going to spend the rest of the article explaining similes and giving examples. But basically, it's a writer's way of comparing two things, but in a way that's descriptive. It can help to explain something that's hard to explain in a direct way. It can be done just to add kind of color and creativity. And we'll explain some other uses for it as well. It's just a writer's technique for comparison. And poets and musicians as well. Anybody who's kind of writing, making up songs will probably use a simile at some point.
Right, because you want to compare things, you want to show how things are similar or not the same in some ways. And, as the article says next, a simile is a technique that makes your writing more creative. You mentioned people who write poems or songs. They'll also use this. I mean, I could say he's very wise, or I could say he was late, so he ran quickly. But if I said he was as wise as an owl, or he was so late he ran like the wind, it's more interesting. It's a way of making your writing more interesting and saying things in a way that kind of stands out or sticks in the imagination and the mind of the person reading. And a way of doing something is a technique. This is a word that we use just to talk about a way or a method or a style of doing something. We're often here talking about things you can do in lots of different ways, but this is is one way of doing it. When we learn a sport or any kind of hobby that might, or skill that might involve using your hands, you might learn different techniques. If you have a coach or a teacher or someone who knows about it, has done it for a long time, you might say, hey, I'm new at this. Can you show me a good technique for playing tennis, playing the guitar, cutting my onions the perfect size? These are ways of doing things that involve some skill, some knowledge, and maybe some experience. For example, Sean showed me a better technique for cutting onions. I tried to learn Gordon Ramsay's technique for cutting onions, and I always get it wrong.
Never seen it. I'm just kind of making it up as I go along.
He's also a professional, and he has a very sharp knife.
Yeah, a sharp knife is...
That's important.
Part of the technique.
Definitely.
Okay, so a simile. We want to use a simile here, and the article explains how and says to use one, you compare two similar things. Okay, we'll look at the words compare and comparison in a moment. Let's concentrate on similar because this is the key to a simile. If you compare two things that are very different, then the image you create is going to be hard to understand. It's not going to really work. People will say, I don't like that. I don't get this description. So you compare similar things. If two things are similar, they are alike or they are almost the same. Any differences between them are very small. And so a simile is based really around the adjective you want to use. If something is big, you compare two things that are big. If something is cold, you compare two things that are cold. They don't need to be exactly the same, but they need to be similar. Here's another example of how we can use this word. German food and Austrian food are similar in several ways. Now, these are two neighboring countries in Europe. They share a lot of culture, language, and history, so it's no surprise their food is not exactly the same, but pretty similar. They have a lot of the same ingredients, cooking styles, and so on.
Lots of meat, lots of potato, few vegetables. Basically. Imagine, the article says, imagine you've just had a really busy day. Okay, so pretend you get home. Oh, wow, I'm tired. What a really busy day I had.
Yeah, not too hard to imagine that for most of us. So, you've had your busy day, and as the article says, you could post on Facebook and say, I've had a really busy day.
Okay.
You can certainly
Makes
do that
sense.
on Instagram and so on. That's what these social media sites are for. And when you use a social media site, you make a post, or to use it in its verb form, you post something. To post has come to mean to put something on the internet so it can be viewed. You can post a new entry to a blog. You can post photos on Instagram. You can post videos, links, comments, all kinds of things on Facebook. With Twitter, they tend to say tweet. That is the verb. You tweet a picture. You tweet a comment.
But you're posting it, basically.
It's still posting it. You're putting it up there so that people can see it. It's on the internet, and there you go. And here's an example that a lot of people would use. Before we start eating, I want to post some photos of our food on Instagram.
Yes, you must post your photos before you eat the food.
Or it doesn't count.
To make sure the food is colder? I don't know. Anyways, let's get back to our day. So we've had a busy day, and you could post something simple. I've had a really busy day. That's a little boring, though, as the article says. Yeah, it's not, a lot of people did. And I guess if I saw that on Facebook, I'd be like, okay. And then move on.
Exactly. Keep scrolling.
Yeah.
So, the article says, to spice things up, use a common simile and say, today I've been as busy as a bee.
Ooh, now that means something. That's getting me interested.
Yeah, bees are busy animals.
Right.
They're kind of known for being hardworking, building hives, collecting honey. So if you have been as busy as a bee, there's that grammar structure again, you've probably been pretty busy. And this spices up your writing. And this relates to the title we use today, Similes, Spice Up Your Writing. To spice things up means to make things more interesting, more flavorful. Of course, it comes from adding spices to food to make it taste more interesting. But that kind of meaning is now used in anywhere. If you're doing something a little different, adding something a little extra, doing something in a bit more creative, interesting, different way, we can say you're spicing things up. And that makes it a bit more exciting for people.
Absolutely. And it says to make a simile, use as or like in the comparison. Busy as a bee. Run like the wind. So we're comparing the bee to being busy. Running to the speed of the wind. The speed of your running to the speed of the wind. This is showing the comparison. And what is a comparison? This is the noun form of the verb to compare. When you take two things that are similar or related in some way and you show how they are the same or how they are different, you are comparing those things. If you want to buy a pair of shoes, you might, look at them and say, oh, I like these ones, the color, but the style, the prices, all that kind of stuff. You can make comparisons between these things to show ways that they are the same or different. For example, it's not fair to make a comparison between the basketball skills of LeBron James and Steph Curry.
But why not, Mike?
Well, because they play in different positions. They both score a lot, but in different ways. They're different ages, all sorts of different things. So you could make who's the better player, but, that might not be quite fair to make that comparison.
But if you want to make a comparison, so who's somebody who plays in the same position as LeBron? Somebody famous.
I have no idea. Why are you asking me this question?
Because I thought you might know more about basketball than me. If I was to make one, I could go, well, maybe two famous soccer players, Cristiano Ronaldo, Leo Messi. They're both attackers. They're both kind of focal points. They play in a slightly different way, but at least you can make a more direct comparison between the two of them.
Okay, like Steph Curry and James Harden. Maybe that would be a better comparison.
Okay, so that's one of the things about comparisons. We're kind of setting out the rules for their use here. So we've said make sure you use as or like in the comparison. That's one thing you do. And here's another. When you try to come up with one, make sure the two things really are similar. And that's kind of what I referred to a little bit earlier. So here we've got the phrase come up with. Come up with is a simple phrasal verb, a pretty common one. Means to invent, to create, to kind of imagine something or think up something and go ahead and use it.
All right, and make sure when we use this phrasal verb, we're talking about being certain or being very careful that something has happened or something is going on or something is true. You don't just go, oh, I think that's going to be fine. No, you make sure. You double check. You ask someone. You don't want to make a mistake, so you make sure. You definitely want to check that.
And the article gives a couple of examples here of making sure the two things are similar. It gives us an example. Tommy is as quiet as a dog in class. It doesn't really work.
No.
So this phrase, this simile, doesn't quite work because dogs are not generally quiet. They bark at people, they bark at the moon, at cars, at strangers. They are not, they can be quiet, but generally you don't think of dogs as being really quiet animals.
Exactly. They're not well known or famous for being quiet. However, as we go on, it says, however, Tommy is as quiet as a mouse in class. Now this one makes sense because mice are famous for being quiet. We know that mice make a little squeaking sound, and if they're too loud, the cats might chase them. So, there's different ways that mice are well known as being quiet. Now, I guess you could say Tommy is as quiet as a goldfish, because fish are quiet, but they're not famous for being quiet. They're underwater all the time. There are no loud fish. So it's a little bit different, right? Because there are some loud animals, but mice are famous because they're small, because they can be chased, because the sounds that they do make are very, very quiet. It makes a bit more sense to make that comparison. And when something makes sense, it is clear. It is logical. It is something your brain hears and goes, yeah, okay. I understand that. That doesn't make me go, what? Or have many questions or make me go, no, that's wrong. It makes sense. It's something that it goes into your mind and your mind quickly goes, yes, okay, I have no problem with that.
Okay, so there's a couple of rules about similes, general guidelines that you can stick to. We're going to talk tomorrow about different ways to use them and also things to be careful for. And we're going to kind of transition to part 2 of the article with the final sentence of part 1. Similes have many uses, but writers have to be careful how they use them too. And we'll explain that in day 2, but right now let's jump into today's For You chat question.
For You chat.
So the question today is, which animal do you think you are most like and why? We've said quiet as a mouse. We've said wise as an owl. If you were going to compare yourself to an animal, what would make a good simile?
A chimpanzee.
All right.
I have no idea. I say that because, we're 98% the same genetically.
Okay. Well, you could, maybe you're funny. You like chimps often are. You a social animal like chimps often are.
Not really. No.
Okay.
I don't know. I guess it would depend. On Monday morning, I'm a sloth.
Right.
Because I don't want to move.
Slow, lazy animal.
But maybe on Friday afternoon, I'm a gazelle.
Oh.
I'm a cheetah.
Light-footed and fast.
I'm quick moving. No, I would be in a good mood. What's a happy, fast animal?
Happy, fast animal. Something that just runs.
I'm a horse.
Yeah, a wild horse.
I'm a zebra that's not being chased by a lion.
That's pretty good.
Although maybe sometimes I am a zebra being chased by a lion. I'm a few steps away from doom.
I will describe myself as like a mule.
A mule?
A donkey.
Okay.
It's towards Lord's...
Okay. Why would you... Because that's stubborn?
I can be a little stubborn.
Okay.
But also... I kind of consider myself to be a sort of a beast of burden.
You can carry a lot of heavy things for a long way without complaining.
Generally what I'm asked to do as, in my sort of role as sort of father and husband to carry my son and other things around.
And you don't slip very often. You're reliable.
Yeah, okay. I would say that.
Okay, and you have a strong kick when you get angry.
Yes, I'm probably not. Yeah, if you continually bother me and jab me with a sharp stick, I'll probably just kick out. And and maybe in the office as well, I may not necessarily be the fastest,
right?
But I will get to the end still carrying all the stuff and get it all done.
And
it's
from far away at night, I might think you're a horse.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
if we can push that simile very far.
This is really working well.
Okay, yeah, I thought about it. Yeah,
Okay.
It's right as we think about similes.
Interesting.
But there we go. What animals are you like and why? Have a think, have a chat, and join us again tomorrow to talk more about similes. We'll see you then. Bye for now.
Vocabulary Review.
Owl. At midnight, the owl flew down from the tree and caught a mouse to eat. Describe. Sherry described which shirt she wanted me to find by telling me about its color and style. Technique. Linda learned a new technique for solving this kind of math problem in class today. Similar. Your sweater looks similar to mine. It's the same style and color. Post. While he was in Paris, Gary posted his vacation photos on Instagram. Comparison. I made a comparison between the two cars before I decided which one to buy.
智慧小补帖
Simile.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net